Hello, welcome to Big Bang Radio Spotlights. This is a show where we talk to independent artists from all around the world all about their music and their process for making it. I'm your host, Isaac Anderson, and today I get to sit down with the musician Circa. Without any further ado, here's the interview. Well, Circa, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. I was greatly looking forward to this interview because you made quite a name for yourself in the indie music scene. Not only the indie music scene, but also the indie marketing scene. And we'll get into a little bit of that in just a bit. But I want to start out at the beginning, kind of like your beginning of your musical journey. And that question is, what is your earliest musical memory?
My earliest musical memory is probably either Space Jam or Weird Al Yankovic. It's probably the first time where I was like, this is music, and someone's showing it to me, and I like it. I have a objective qualification of the music, and a subjective one, and I want to listen to it later. I need to get it so that I can then listen to it later. So that's when I first started this process of ownership of a music, you know.
Very nice, very nice.
In terms of making music, my first musical experience was probably with piano, very early on, but really as an artist, it was when my father bought me a copy of Acid Music Studio, the first one, and a sound card for my like Gateway PC or something like that.
Very nice, very nice. Well, did you grow up in a musical family, by the way?
No, my dad is he's a deadhead, but he's also like a bit of a lot of his friends in college were musicologists. So they knew every record and they knew everyone, they knew every player. And, certainly 1970s hippie music and then black music were like a huge part of my edification.
Well, heard that, man. Well, I took this quote directly from your social media account, and it says, I was raised on dub tapes, drum breaks, serotonin reuptakes, and status updates. First off, what a phrase. I know you have a background in marketing. That's a great phrase right there. And it was all in lowercase too. I'm like, you stylize that. That's good. I like that. Yeah. What are some of the musical influences that really instilled your musical palette?
Yeah, I would say that my dad tried to raise me on people like Van Morrison and Jackson Browne and the band and Bob Dylan and stuff like that. I certainly gravitated more towards the Otis Reddings, the Sam Cookes, early soul music, early doo-wop music, early R&B music is like still to this day my bread and butter. All my heroes are kind of black and dead. Like they died in the 1980s, you know, and so that's where a lot of my musical education comes from is Motown, Stax, Muscle Shoals, that kind of stuff, and then also hip hop, like very early on, Eminem, Wu-Tang, Ghostface, and then sub offerings of Wu-Tang, the Lox, Biggie, like all that stuff. And then soon after that, it also got a mixture of ska and punk into it. But like historical music, pre 1970s music, hip hop, and then punk and ska were really where I started off, like my launching place.
Jagged rhymes, baby, hard and die. That's what I keep in the crease of my hand. We all bleed as we atrophy. We got reasons we should break. It's not right. When you whip above in a betterment, I put this all on my heritage. I'm carving my edifice. You back in your lies, acting surprised. I know that karma gon' let us in.
Your voice. I do want to hop on your voice. You have a really cool, like, soulful growl to there. Did you ever do like any like training on that, or was that just something you were born with, like Maybelline?
So when the first time that I sang, I had written a song, and I remember standing behind a wall while my mom was in the next room and singing it. I was incredibly embarrassed. But it was probably more of like the MTV pop verite, that song. And really when I started singing again, I started off really identifying with, when I started playing acoustic guitar, which was when I was like 17, really identifying with like Bright Eyes and Conor Oberst, because I felt it was like a modern proxy for Bob Dylan. And so I learned a lot of those songs, but quickly it became drives to and from school, which I went to school like 10 miles or 15 miles away. So I would drive to and from school, and I would listen to my old soul records and literally go through 10 seconds, pause it, go back, try to nail the inflection and the vocal characteristic and all the notes of my favorite Black artists. And so trying to sing like Etta James, trying to sing like the Coasters, trying to sing like Jackie Wilson, trying to sing like Sam Cooke and Otis Redding, those are the things that contributed most to my vocal, is trying to sound like those artists.
Your name, Circa. Okay, so your actual name is Kyle, I believe. I don't know if you want to hide that from the world or not. So
No. I give people the option, either one.
Okay. Well, you go by Circa for the music. So when did you decide to go under the name Circa, and what does the name Circa mean to you?
So it's fun. It's a funny story. So I've been a very different person at different stages in my life. When I was around 13 or 14, I was a vagrant criminal. Like, I was a drug dealing, get into fights, get jumped, get robbed kind of guy. And, I definitely had a rough upbringing. So I wasn't in the same climate that I am now in my upbringing. And so that's this context for this idea, which is that I lived in a lot of places growing up. My dad would move around. And so I ended up living in the American South for a little while, right around the time that Mike Jones and Paul Wall were blowing up, and Bun B and all that. And so I adopted the vernacular of Southern Black music. So when I came back to Massachusetts, I was saying things like 100 and then also, most importantly, I'm about that. That was my response to almost any idea that someone posed for an activity we were going to go do. Let's go to the mall. I'm about that, whatever. And so I was in Latin class with another vagrant criminal friend of mine, and they taught us that circa was Latin for approximately or about. And then he just started calling me Circa because I said that all the time. As I get older, I'm thinking of changing that as my artist name, just because it's not very Googleable. So another moniker that I frequently go under is Some Kid Punk. That's my handle on all social media. So it might be changing to that. But my nickname through my childhood friendships was Circa, and it just became my artist name.
On to the songwriting process, because your lyricism along with your voice is really powerful. Like in one of your songs, "Sacrifice," which we were talking about before the interview, and it's got like this part in it where it's like, "My savior's a masochist," it's really powerful. How exactly do you go about writing your songs?
It takes a lot of different forms. For the first 10 years as a musician, I was strictly a hip hop artist. So I was producing beats and then rapping over them, and trying to find other people to do that with. When you do hip-hop songwriting is greatly informed by the strict procedures of poetic writing. So if you don't understand Edgar Allan Poe and meter, you are at a significant disadvantage writing rap lyrics. But once you understand the room that every syllable has, like, let's say you construct a framework, right? Like da 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 da, right? Like, that's a line. Once you understand all the syllables that can go into each of those beats, and when it feels stressed or it feels less, like you can build and relieve tension through the length of your syllables and the difficulty of them. And then you get really good at rhyming, multi-syllable rhyming, internal rhyming. And so you'll find that like a lot of the songs I end up writing read more like rap songs with the amount of rhymes that are in it. So my savior is a masochist. Savior is a masochist. Flame is immaculate. It's all a multi that like a rapper would use. A lot of times I find that my writing is dictated by the structure I set. So it's like a line is there because it happened to, out of all the lines that could fit that syllable definition, out of all the lines that could fit in that space that I set for it, that one had the most meaning or implicit meaning to me. That song "Sacrifice" is not it. I didn't write it necessarily. Like I didn't sit down and think about the concepts that it means to me now. I had deadlifted that morning in the yard at the studio that I was managing. And when you deadlift, you use chalk because your hands get sweaty and then you can't grip the barbell. So you have chalk in your hands. And so I was just writing and I was thinking chalk is actually these tiny microscopic rocks. And so the song starts off, jagged rocks, hardened dust. That's what I keep in the crease of my hand. That's just chalk in deadlifting. But to a lot of people, it invokes these feelings of like a hard life or a hard lived life or toil or sweat or labor. And it says, couldn't hold all this love. My fingers fail the deeper my stance. The deeper your stance, meaning the wider your stance. The wider my stance in a deadlift, the bar starts to fall out of my hands. So this is all deadlifting imagery that just fit. It just fit. And because it's stripped of its specificity, it has a lot of interpretive meaning to a lot of people. And then like there's other imagery in the song that's about my addiction to chewing ice. But some people interpret these lines as like methamphetamine addiction. So there's in writing, I find myself a lot of the time leaving space for lines to mean something that I didn't intend, and really letting the beauty of the sentence structure and the linguistics guide where that song goes, but not try to place too much intentional meaning into it. And I get a lot more meaning out that way.
So you mentioned you worked as a studio manager in the past. How was that experience, and how exactly did it shape your musical journey?
Oh, in a big way. I came to college in Orlando, Florida, coming from Massachusetts, being in a rap crew, so to speak, a gang, and like I come to Florida, I form all these new friendships, I create a new rap group, and then I start to become disenchanted with rap in general, or feel as if I don't have a place in it at that current moment in the climate. Now I feel a lot differently about that. I feel like the climate has caught up to where I have a place, but I lost the ability to have that fervor for like making a rap mixtape. Like I made 2 of them in college and I was just exhausted. And then I got out of college and the reality of real life hits me. I'm living through assistance of my extended family members. I don't have my own footing yet. And then my apartment got raided for a number of different reasons that weren't, it wasn't my fault, but who I was living with. My apartment got raided, and I ended up in a jail cell, and I was facing charges. At that point, I started applying feverishly to jobs and living on my friend's couch, just trying to get my life back together. I got a job, the charges got dropped, everything's all good, and I start having enough money to get off my friend's couch. And that's when Matt Ills, who's the creator of the battle rap league Grind Time Now, which if anyone was on the internet in like the 2000s, you know what Grind Time Now is. And I met him, and he was saying, hey, I'm living in a studio. There's an open room. Does anyone want to join? And so I was like, yeah. I came and I met the owner, and he wanted to enlist me as a talent that he could use at the studio to build the business, not just as a roommate. And so I agreed, and I led a team of about 20 interns from Full Sail University to finish building the studio. I met one of those interns is a gentleman named Ignacio, who now goes by Bad One Music. He's about to be really, really big. If the recent year is like any indication, he's about to be pretty big. I've watched him grow from just I'm thirsty to be an engineer to I am an engineer to I'm a capable engineer to I want to produce to I'm a sick producer to I'm one of the best producers in town. And now he's doing remixes for like big pop stars. And so that's just one of dozens and dozens of people I met and lived with at that studio. Because at that studio, the thing is that if you work there, you live there. And some people lived there who didn't work there. We tried to start a publishing company. We pulled in all of the best writers, producers, and instrumentalists in Orlando. 40, 50 people in that house at a given time, broken into groups, writing songs by a structure that we invented. And we really try to make that place Motown. There is a couple movies of experiences that I got from that place, and it gave me a strictly musical community to operate in. It gave me an understanding of my place in that musical community, and it challenged me to realize how little I know about creating music and how much I still had to learn. So, I mean, if you would get an opportunity to live below the poverty line in a recording studio, do it. But yeah, I lived in a closet there by the end of it. It was a crazy experience.
Well, heard that, man. Well, I do want to hop into some of the music that you have out right now, because you got a couple songs out, but it looks like you're going to release a lot more in the future. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We'll mention that a little later after I talk about this. But your song "County Graves," this is kind of like smack in the middle of your music catalog as it is of the time of recording this, and it really has a really cool electronic bluesy, almost like a modern soul kind of thing going on to it, and it's just combined in there with your voice. It starts out with like that kind of guitar thing, kind of goes into a bunch of different elements too. What was the process of recording that like?
Yeah, so that one I'd already started Indepreneur, and I was interfacing with musicians daily, and I wanted to show them like, hey, you can pay a guy like $100 or $200, come over to your house with a nice camera, and then you can record a song at home in an unideal scenario. And given that you have the right technicians on the project, it doesn't matter. You can make it sound great. You can actually use the imperfections of the space in which you're recording to elicit a certain, baked in effect to the song. A lot of people see the challenges of not having an ideal recording environment and say, how do I counteract these instead of how do I use these? So I had a big cavernous hardwood floor, 2-bedroom apartment, which is not ideal for if you want a controlled environment in which to add your own reverb. But if you're okay with the dynamics of that environment and it fits the song, you're good. So I just had my engineer friends from that studio I lived in, including that intern who produced the song, along with another intern who came later. I had them come over. I had one of my favorite guitar players, live guitar players in town, come over with his amp and guitar. He plays the guitar line. We track it there in the studio using an NT1000. It's like a $200, $300 mic at tops, and an Audient ID14 interface, $199, $200 interface or something like that. And so we track the guitar to a click, track my vocal to a click into the guitar, and then they go about remixing it. I also had a friend, Cortland Green, come over and play keys over it for the producer so that he could sample that. But ultimately, my goal was, first of all, let's make a usable asset, a video and a song, using something that's, within the realm of obtainability for most independent musicians. So let's not use Access. And then let's also, tertiary goal, I would love to see older styles of music be brought into a modern context through modern production. Let's find places where blues and the types of production that Iggy's about align, and let's make something new sounding. I don't think we hit it on the head. I think there's ways to unify soul, blues, R&B of the 1950s and 60s with modern production in an even better way than we did there. But I think we started to uncover the potential that does lie there.
You did mention Indepreneur, and I think most everyone watching right now probably knows you from that. And this is how I heard of you. But in case people don't know what Indepreneur is, this is like an indie marketing agency. I don't want to describe it for you. I want you, the creator, to tell people that don't know. What is Indepreneur?
So Indepreneur is a marketing, education, and services company. So we both educate independent musicians on marketing principles, specifically digital direct response marketing. And then we also provide services where we have a staff of experts, people who become very adept at this sort of thing. And they're hired by musicians who have made it to a point where they're monetizing, or they've already monetized and they want to increase that. Sometimes we take on people who are just trying to build their fan base, but it's very rare because we find that paying an agency fee is more harmful than it is helpful to someone who's just starting out. It's better that they do that work themselves because their time is worth much less than it will be later on. So yeah, that's what we do.
Oh, very nice. Well, I think a lot of people watching right now, I'll post this in the Indie Pro group and the Indepreneur Indies. So hi, everybody. Good to see you. I comment on a lot of your stuff, and I see a lot of your things. I enjoy being part of the group. Well, since we are on the topic of music business and music marketing, this is something that I find as a musician that musicians really don't like to talk about, or if they do like to talk about it, they talk about it in such a negative way where they say, oh, it doesn't matter, or, oh, this is evil. Like I heard you had a whole podcast about like, is this selling evil? Obviously the answer is no, but what is something about music marketing that you think people really gravitate towards really fast, and something that you find is really hard to kind of instill in musicians that like this is necessary, but they just don't want to accept it?
So I think that musicians traditionally, they practice marketing by necessity. And because it is a necessity, that is low on the list of assumed responsibilities for an artist. They spend a lot more of their mental power thinking about in the studio and the product that they're putting out, much less than they do about promoting that product. When it comes time to promote it, they try quote unquote marketing, but having no real memorization, comprehension, understanding, and then practice of the skill. And which is like, it's the hierarchy of onboarding to a skill is those things. And so they have bad experiences with it because it doesn't work, because they tried it out at the last minute. And all these things that people were hyping. I mean, there's a lot of people out there on the internet who are going to hype you up, who are going to be like, you do this thing and you're going to be killing it. And then you have this negative result and you're like, I hate marketing. You also become, I mean, failure breeds anti-capitalist tendencies. I mean, I certainly know that when I was at the very bottom of the social rungs, of the social ladder, I reviled capitalism and corporations that are trying to screw us all over. And I think that as artists, we are predisposed to that attitude. So it presents a natural barrier for us actually learning how commerce and how capitalism actually works, because we simply dismiss it. I think that what people like is hearing that they're going to get a result. Hey, if you do this set of instructions, you're going to get this range of results that are all positive to you, and thereby you'll actually put up with having to do this set of instructions. But a set of instructions is not what's needed to create a fully formed, integrated artist who knows how to self-market. What's needed is the practice of a skill. Just like me teaching you how to play Smoke on the Water doesn't make you a guitar player, and you're probably not going to do it very well until you learn a whole bunch of other skills and then come back to it and actually kill it. The same is true for marketing. Same is very true for marketing. I could teach you a stunt. It may or may not work for you. You may do it poorly, just like you would do poorly Smoke on the Water. Only once you've understood and taken time to memorize and incorporate the whole of marketing ideas will you understand how to properly execute the trick that I tried to show you. So that's what people don't want to hear. People don't want to hear, hey, this is a skill that's as important as your finger drumming or as your vocal or anything like that. People don't want to hear that. They do want to hear, you can do this set of things that I'm going to tell you, and then guaranteed you're going to get this result, which just isn't ever true.
At the beginning of the year, you said on the Indepreneur or Full Stack Creative, rather, the YouTube page, you said, we're currently trying to make and market 30 songs in this year. First off, that's a lot. That's a lot, man. And you're going to document it also, and you have a series called The Grounds where you're documenting all these things. So what's been the most challenging part of doing that? I know the world has essentially gone into this pandemic with the COVID-19 thing, and there's a lot of other things going on in the social climate right now. What do you find the most challenging to kind of finish up this process?
So we actually haven't put out a Grounds episode since the lockdown started. And it's actually funny because, this is what happens. You set out towards a goal, and you find that it's not a matter of work on the actual goal that you're going to go through, but rather an amount of work on yourself. You're going to have to change elements of who you are to accomplish this thing you've never accomplished, because the you that you are doesn't accomplish those things. So just fundamentally, you have to change. And that's true for me. I went into this with a couple of deficiencies. One is that I am quick to spread the responsibility of finishing music. I'm quick to say, I'm going to bring in this guy and that guy and this guy, and they're all going to help me. But none of them are incentivized to the degree that I am to finish this music. So I can't, give them, hey, work on this, or, okay, all I need now is for you to work on that. And they'll go do it. That's not you're going to have to spend a lot of time chasing down deliverables in that scenario. So one of my main deficiencies is not trusting myself. Another main deficiency is putting too high a requirement on the audio fidelity and perfection of what I'm going to put out. So I had to come to grips. So you set the goal knowing that it's impossible, and then you change yourself and your scenario and your requirements and your expectations to meet the goal. You don't just accomplish goals that seem impossible. You change to accomplish them. And that's what's happening to me, is I've now resolved to finish songs myself. I might have my buddy mix them, but I'm trying to get better at production. I've been practicing this MIDI fighter and Ableton Push like every day. And I've been writing songs from the ground up, very simple, not overcomplicating them. And so the biggest challenge for me has been to change how I think about creating music, to actually become informed, to spend the time practicing instead of just pawning off the responsibility onto my collaborators. And that's where I'm at now. I'm hoping to come back with Grounds episode 9, really a second, we had like a mid-season break, you could say, and to come back with that second back half of the documentary as a solo effort, and then slowly reincorporate my collaborator.
Well, heard that, man. Well, what's next for Circa? Like, when can people expect to hear the new music? I know I heard on a podcast that you say, I'm getting ready to put some new stuff out with the Circa name. Yeah. I'm ready to revamp this music career, man. I'm excited to hear it. When can people expect that?
Yeah, so we have a finished song called Last Train Home from the Grounds. We have another song that's like almost finished with a few of my collaborators. So those will probably be first to get out. I'm hoping to put them out within the next month. I'm not going to pay as much marketing attention to them as I am going to a couple of collections that we're going to put out this year. But yeah, it's everything should be ramping up for the summer. So the summer should be a large amount of releases for us. And then towards the end of fall, winter, it'll start to ramp back up again. So yeah.
Sounds great, man. Well, how can people keep a track of what you are doing music-wise on social media?
Yeah, I'm at SomeKidPunk. So if you're Facebook, it's facebook.com/SomeKidPunk, youtube.com/SomeKidPunk, Instagram.com/SomeKidPunk. It's all SomeKidPunk. And so you can follow me there, but also, as you mentioned, we're doing a documentary series on the whole process called The Grounds on our YouTube channel. If you go to youtube.com/c/Indepreneur, or you just search Full Stack Creative, that's our YouTube channel. And that's where we put out the sort of behind the scenes on all that.
Well, wonderful, man. Look, I really do appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. I was very excited to, as a part of the Indepreneur community, and just a music fan and a lover of music business and music marketing and everything. You're a legend in that regard. So it's been an honor. I do have.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I was just going to say that I really appreciate it. No one's really ever interviewed me on the basis of my own music. So that was refreshing. Thank you so much.
Well, no problem, man. I feel like you haven't got enough attention on that regard, because you're so talented on that. And you're so focused, on Indepreneur and everything.
Papa's son wears no shoes. That's the old saying that says the shoemaker's son wears no shoes. So that's the case for me. I work a lot on other people's stuff and haven't been devoting enough time to my own.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing too, because I listen to your music all the time, and I think it's a shame that people don't know, about your music. And I want to make sure that we can at least use our platform to try to get your music heard. And I got one more question for you that is not music related, but I always ask the artists that I talk to at the very end of my interviews this question. And so I'm a musician, but I'm also a film lover, and I do a show at Studio 67 and 89.1 FM, which is our radio station, called Big Bang Cinema with a good friend of mine. And I feel like musicians have a soft spot for film. I feel like the art is not too far away from music. And before we go, Circa, what is your favorite movie?
Ooh, that's a tough one, man.
Everyone always struggles with this one.
Yeah, I don't watch a whole lot of movies twice. And I've watched a lot of movies. Whew, I don't know. I think I would need it narrowed or qualified in some way. I mean, if you go by the amount of times I've watched a movie, it's South Park movie, which I watched probably 1,000 times when I was in middle school. But certainly if you ask me like what's been the most impactful or meaningful movie to me, I would say the Muscle Shoals documentary has been one of the most impactful because it allowed me to see why I should revere Southern rock, which I didn't know before. I couldn't get to Southern rock and like Creedence from Otis Redding, but that movie allowed me to. So that, also Ray, pretty much all the, because cinema was a huge part of my education into Black historical music. It was the doo-wop song playing in a car that drove by. It was the soul singer they were doing a biopic on. It's those moments that allowed me to gain a throughway to 60s and 50s and 40s music. So I'd say it has to be a biopic of some sort. That is my favorite. Ray is up there. The Muscle Shoals documentary is up there. Stax documentary is up there. So yeah.
Thanks to Circa for sitting down with me and talking all about his music. If you guys want to see more interviews just like this, you can go to facebook.com/Studio67NCC, youtube.com/NashComCollege, or you can find us on Instagram at Studio67NCC. Thank you all for watching. I'm Isaac Anderson, and until next time, stay lovely.